Before Prohibition, Detroit resembled a lot of cities in America. We had a thriving beer industry. For many, many years, ale was king in Detroit. We had a strong English tradition where we focus on stouts and ales. But that really changed in the 1800s. When the Polish and the German folks started showing up in the mid-1800s, they saw a desire for a clean beverage. And in Detroit, that wasn't water. Despite being surrounded by the Great Lakes, we had a horrible water system until the early 1900s. Back in the day, you would actually take a shot of hard liquor and pour it in your water to clean it. And this is not just adults, this is kids, toddlers. We have plenty of artwork showing kids holding a mug of beer because you'd rather be a little drunk throughout the day than have cholera. So when we start getting all these Germans coming in, we start getting all this technology coming in, then we get this explosion in this mass-produced beer that Detroit has never seen before.
You know, largely the Detroit beer history is pretty lager-centric. I mean, the big brand from Detroit historically is Stroh.
When Prohibition first set in, there wasn't really a belief that it was going to impact beer. Many Detroit brewers saw Prohibition coming, but they were hard convinced that it was going to target liquor. When it came down that beer was also going to be prohibited, it sent shockwaves through the community.
When you have something that is made illegal just like that, like Prohibition did with alcohol, certainly there are going to be crimes committed, right? Like people trying to smuggling it in. So it really made for some pretty explosive stories, and the Detroit Free Press was at the center of that, covering it, documenting it. And then, of course, Prohibition, you had the Detroit River and the rum runners, you know, people smuggling in beer from Canada to Detroit.
And so we have whiskey right across the river, we have beer right across the river, and now we have a way to get booze into Detroit that most cities in the country don't have.
Not all those trips were successful. There is a pretty interesting collection of artifacts at the bottom of that Detroit River, and the beer that we're brewing right now, this pre-Prohibition lager, stems from that. I mean, it's inspired by that idea of what's inside that barrel and what can we make that harkens back to another time in this place. The fact that, you know, a modern brewery that's been around less than 10 years gets to play any sort of role on the continuity of Detroit beer and the history of Detroit beer and the style of pre-Prohibition lager in collaboration with the Free Press, who did cover that, that's fun. It's a lot of fun for us.
The Detroit Free Press is Michigan's largest newspaper. It's been around since 1831. It really is the place that documents history. And when it came to discussing what this beer was going to be, we kept coming back to the pre-Prohibition lager to give a nod to that history that the Free Press has been documenting for 193 years, the beer history in this city. We came up with a few ideas for what this beer was going to be called, what it was going to be. The one we kept coming back to was On Guard, which is our slogan. It's obviously a nod to the Free Press, but it's also a nod to anybody who is on guard for each other and the connection to the community that Batch has. We wanted those ideas, those values to overlap, and that was really important to us. And once we had that, it was smooth sailing from there, and then we had the On Guard pre-Prohibition lager.
Boom, pre-pro lager. I'm thinking, you know, the Stroh story, blah, blah, blah. Some Michigan hops, probably 10% on the corn, and then whatever blend of the 2-row, 6-row. Yeah. So I guess that's really what we're going to pay attention to on this test batch. I mean, it's historical. So we don't got really much to mess with. But just making it
classic style,
making it as tasty and true as possible. And I think we're there with everything we have.
Yeah,
It's gonna be tasty.
I love and appreciate all styles of beer. I think what I enjoy making most is lager brewing. I think it's a good expression of the brewer. There's really nothing to hide behind. It's more of like, how well did we balance this beer and how well did we treat the fermentation? Did we take care of the yeast? Did we beat it up a little bit? Did we expedite it? Was it rushed? All those flaws you'll be able to find in the nuance of the final product. So that's why I like them, and that's why I enjoy drinking them. I originally went to school for music education. I played music for many, many years, and to me, beer was kind of another creative outlet and artistic expression. I'm hands-on with our raw material every step of the way, manually weighing out hops, malt, all the salts. We don't have rakes in that mash tun, so we're there with the paddle doing that. We're graining out by hand. We're loading them into bins and helping the farmer on his truck take that grain away. So there's something to be said about touching every valve and every aspect of the beer. That just makes you feel more connected to it and makes you feel more proud of the process. And we see people enjoying the beer, it's just that much more rewarding.
All right, Eric, what are we tasting here?
So today we have a flight of two similar styles of beer. Third, that's going to be the odd man out. The one on the far left is going to be a local rendition of a pre-pro lager. The one in the middle is our test batch that we did. And the far right one is another beer that we brew called Czech 1212, which is a Czech style lager. It's a little bit different than the style of a pre-pro, but it's just another pale lager to compare it and see what we like and dislike. So,
Sounds great. So where do we start?
I would say let's start with the Czech. It's just the odd man out. This one's going to be not as dry. It's obviously a stronger ABV. This guy finished at 5.4%. Yeah.
Yep, definitely bitter,
Yep.
but also light, clean, crisp.
See, I get like floral notes, a little bit of spice or black pepper characteristic. Clean, maybe a touch of sulfur, which is appropriate for the style.
We can move on to the second one.
Yeah, sure, let's do the other local version.
Steven, what do you think?
I think this beer is really well made.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's incredibly bright. Like this beer is
Yeah, it's crystal,
incredibly
you can
bright.
read.
So
Yeah. And then the last one we have is our crack at pre-pro lager. This guy finished at 4.7%.
So tell me, Eric, what makes a pre-prohibition lager as compared to a regular lager that people might find in town?
Yeah, characteristically, the style is made with a flaked adjunct like corn. Yeast style is kind of funky, kind of phenolic, a little bit non-traditional to like an American light lager, where they tend to be a lot cleaner. But pre-pro is kind of a full flavored version of what turned to be an American light lager, I would say.
I like the bitterness a lot.
So I've been separating my palate from what everyone's...
masses palate?
Yeah, everyone seems to really enjoy the level of bitterness.
Yeah.
I personally think it might be a touch too bitter for my palate.
I tend to agree with you a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we could dial it back just a hair.
Just a hair. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. So
What do we think about the carbonation? You like the level of effervescence?
I think it could use a hair more carbonation to it,
Yeah.
which will just make it a little bit brighter on the palate.
Yeah, they're great.
I'll note that as well too.
I feel like ours has a little more hop aroma as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I like. Yeah, I think this is pointed in a good direction. What do you think? I mean, ultimately, you know.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Your opinion is a little more,
I mean, this is what draws me to lagers. Is that it's balanced, it's light, especially when this comes out in April, when the weather warms up, people start coming out, enjoying the outdoors. Yeah, I think it's a really pleasant drinking experience.
Glad you think so. I mean, personally, I'm happy with it. I could drink a lot of this beer. I probably will this weekend. So.
Yeah, plenty.
Take a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Oh, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
That was good.
Yeah, cheers.
Absolutely.
What this beer means to us is almost what every beer means to us. We are trying to make beers that tell great stories about our craft and how we approach that craft as artisans. From a historical note, I think that anybody in beer making feels like they're carrying the torch on some level for the people that came before us. And as far as that happening in Detroit, while we're aware of beer history, we're most concerned about being good neighbors and good citizens, so that 5 years from now or 10 years from now, people are still drinking this beer that we're making because they have been supporting it, they feel connected to it. And that's when you look back and you say, wow, this brewery's been around for 20 years or 25 years or 30, 40, 50 years because they put the boots on and the gloves on every day, one foot in front of the other, and keep being inspired by making a great product.
We know that Detroiters can make beer. We know we can do it really well. And it's a really fine opportunity for the next generation to learn this history because they're used to seeing variety. They're used to being able to go to get a Detroit beer. For folks my age, we couldn't do that. We couldn't go get Stroh's, we couldn't go get Altus, because by the time we were allowed to drink, all that stuff was gone. So now there's an expectation that Detroiters can make beer, that we can brew really fine beers, and people are starting to wonder, have we always done this? Is this a new thing? Are we just kind of throwing our hat in? Are we just experimenting? And the answer is no. We've been brewing beer for 300 years.